Hi there. I recently acquired this lovely old Saito 56 4-stroke engine. Beautiful engines, quite powerful and yet in quite a small package. Well, this one hadn't been treated that well. Unfortunately, it was a little bit rusty inside the bearings, and so I had to completely strip it down and put new bearings in and rebuild it. And while I was putting it back together, I thought, you know what, I'll do a quick video just showing how I make sure that you get the timing right, because you have to mesh together the gears from the camshaft with the crankshaft, and if you get that wrong, even a tough out, your engine's not going to like it. So anyway, have a look at this video now, and this is the method that I use for ensuring that we get that timing just right. So anyway, take a look at this. Okay, well, I've got my my Saito 56 here, and it's ready to have the crankshaft housing and the camshaft housing put together to align the camshaft with the crankshaft correctly. Now we have the camshaft housing, and we've got the camshaft with the gear on here, and that needs to mesh into the gear on the crankshaft. You can just see the gear in there, hopefully. Now, to align these correctly, we need to have the crank pin, the big end, at top dead centre. So, just about like that. Now, the gear on the camshaft has got a small dot there, hopefully you can see that, and that dot needs to be at bottom dead centre. So, how do we hold these? Now, they move very freely, and if we're not careful when we're meshing them together and we catch the gear, we could just misalign them by one tooth, which will which will upset our engine a great deal. So we need a mechanism to hold these firmly in position so we can put them together without fear of misaligning them. And I'll show you the technique that I use. I'm sure there's lots of ways of doing this. I've seen different ways on forums, but this is what I found is the best way. And for the crankshaft, to hold it at top dead centre, use an elastic band. And what we do is, if we just loop the elastic band around the crank pin and then fold it back like that, pull it nice and tight, and then loop it round and then loop it around again. Depends on how big your elastic band is, of course. We just want to have the elastic band nice and tight. So there we go. We've got the elastic band looped around the crank pin and then coming up and over and around the back of the crankcase here. Now, it's important with this alignment to get the elastic bands that hold the crank pin coming across here more or less directly in line with the crank pin, so the centre of this hole here. And once we've got that aligned like that, that elastic band will hold that at top dead centre. Even if you try to move it, it will just spring back. You can see the alignment there. So that's the one element held in place and ready to be put together. Now, with the camshaft and getting this gear lined up with the hole at bottom dead centre, we have the oil hole that's in the camshaft, and we can use that to help us with the alignment. Now, that hole lines up with the cam follower guide, this that goes into the top of the housing. Now, what I do is I've got a paintbrush, believe it or not, which has got sort of a fairly dull end on it, a dull sort of point. It's not really pointed, but it's enough for what we want. And I've put a little bit of electrical insulation tape around that, so that will slot down into the guide house, the cam follower guide housing, whatever you call it, this bit. So we'll push that in like that, and it's a really snug fit, so you have to push it in quite a bit, and there, I've just pushed that in, and now it's touching the camshaft. We can see our oil hole there, and we just rotate that round until we get to bottom dead centre. Yep, and now I've just pushed that paintbrush a little bit further and it's gone into that oil hole, and that is really firm now, and we can see this hole is at bottom dead centre and it's held quite firmly. It doesn't want to go anywhere. You can see that it just doesn't want to move. So we've got no fear that that's going to move now when we mesh these two items together. So this is ready to go together now. This is done, this is done. Top dead centre, bottom dead centre. Now I'm going to be using the old gasket, and I'll just put a little bit of oil on here, because the last thing we want is to be putting this together and the gasket moves and we have to take it apart. So a little bit of oil on there, put the gasket in place like that, and now we're ready to put these two together with the correct timing. So just check that it's still firm, bottom dead centre, top dead centre, and now we can just place those together, and there we have it, perfectly aligned gears that are held in place. And now I'm just going to put in a couple of the hex head bolts, screws, machine screws. I won't tighten them up, I'll just put them so they just hold this casing until I've got them all in. There we go. Right, now that's held nice and firm now, so I can remove the paintbrush, just give it a pull, it's quite tight, and we can take off the elastic band, and there we have perfect timing for our Saito engine, and we can with confidence now build up the rest of the engine, not worrying that we've perhaps got it out by a tooth. So there we go, I hope that's helped. It's a really simple process, just with a paintbrush and elastic band, and that's how I do it. Like I say, lots of ways of doing it, but I just thought I'd share with you the method that I use.